I was having a conversation with my son about empaths because he's something of an empath himself. Now, empaths are people who feel such compassion and can relate to such an extent to other people's feelings that it often affects them also. So typically an empath will see somebody going through a difficult time in their lives, either financial or relations or emotional, whatever the difficulty might be. And an empath will observe that and internalize, recognize, understand, and internalize that difficulty. And often to the point where it affects them emotionally also, and to some extent it affects them physically also. It messes up their health because they see that person's problems as if it's their own problems. Now, while empathy is actually a very, very good trait to have, both as a human being as well as in business, there is a limit to how much we can allow it to govern our thoughts, feelings, and actions. Because if we don't um, govern it, if we don't bring it under control, what is going to happen is that it's going to not just affect us, but it's going to affect the people around us. And so here's the example I gave my son. I said, let's say you were driving somewhere and you saw this woman with little children and she was begging, and you took all the money that you had and you gave it to her because of that strong feeling. And then you went home and your wife asked you, where's the money? That was your salary. We need that money to run our home. This is an extreme example. She said, well, we need that money to pay the rent, to buy food, etc. And you say, well, I felt such empathy for that person that I gave her all my money. Now, on one hand, you might be doing a good thing. You might have been feeling empathy for this woman in her plight and her children. But on the other hand, what you did is that you created a problem for another person who has more rights over you than that person who was on the street. And you are, in a sense, oppressing your wife. Now, although this is an extreme example, but it also indicates a lot of a very common problem where we internalize other people's problems or even our own problems that happened at work, and we come home and our families can immediately see that our moods are not the same, that we're not our usual jovial, jolly self, joking with the wife and kids. Immediately when you do that, you create a sense of tension in your relationships, which in itself is a kind of oppression. So as an empath, yes, you can feel for some people, but you need to train your mind to limit that empathy that you have by thinking about those who do have rights over you and about their rights, about keeping their rights and preserving their rights. So that's the first thing. Don't destroy yourself to the point, or don't let it govern you or take ownership of you to a point where you are oppressing others. The second thing to remember is that, yes, this world is an imperfect place. There's a lot of problems. There are people who are daily facing hardships and difficulties. But do we realize sometimes that those difficulties are what makes them the people that they are? That perhaps those difficulties will become a stepping stone to their massive success, a stepping stone to them becoming better versions of who they are. I mean, if you look at it scientifically in the medical field, right, as an example, if you become sick, and let's say you become so sick it knocks you out for a couple of days or weeks, and then you recover, that recovery is indicative of two things. First, that your body fought against that sickness and came out on top. But it also indicates that your body has now built up immunity to that sickness. So your body has become a stronger, better version of itself. As compared to if you were brought up in a sterile environment where there are no sicknesses, absolutely no sicknesses, no diseases. Would that be a good thing? Because in that case, your body would be weak, your immune system would be weak. You wouldn't build up any immunity to any sicknesses. I'm talking about a theoretical situation here, right? And then the moment you went out into the real world, you would become sick with everything, and it'll probably, even the smallest sickness would kill you. So sometimes the world, the universe, God gives us difficulties and throws difficulties in our path. Now, as a Muslim, that's what we are taught. From childhood, we are taught that difficulties and ease are both a blessing from God. Ease, it's clear to understand that you are happy, you've got good relationships, you're wealthy, you've got sufficient of everything is going well. Right, it's self-evident that you need to be grateful for that. But difficulties are also a blessing because they could be very rewarding in a sense that they make you better versions of yourself. Just like the body became stronger and a better version of itself through the endurance of the sickness, by us enduring these difficulties, sometimes people lose everything they have. They go through financial difficulties. Sometimes people go through difficulties in their relationships. Some people go through difficulties with their children. Some people are battling things like depression. But on one hand, if you are that person going through that, do not despair. Rather, use that as an opportunity to grow. Think of it as, again, using the body, going to the gym and working out. Going to the gym, working out is difficult, it's tiring, it's sometimes painful. But why do we do it? We do it because the results are very obvious. Our bodies become stronger, become more toned, better looking. Now, in the same way, emotionally, intellectually, by these challenges that life throws at us, we become stronger, better versions of ourselves. So if you are going through that, then be grateful for that and use that as an opportunity rather than to fold and become despondent. Use it as an opportunity to grow. And if you are an empath, then remember that just as you are going through your own challenges in life and you are overcoming them, then that person that's out there that you are feeling bad for, yes, if you had the power to help that person, you would. If you had the power to get that person out of that difficulty, you would. But what would you be doing in the process? The harm you would be doing would be impossible to calculate, because you could probably be depriving that person of an opportunity to grow. You know, I always say that the same thing to parents. With today's helicopter parents, we want to give our children everything that we didn't have, and we want to protect them from everything that we were not protected from. We don't want them to go through those hardships that we went through. But we don't realize that it's those hardships and difficulties and challenges in life that made us into better, stronger people. And so if our children are going through that, it's not a bad thing. Yes, we can offer guidance, we can offer assistance, but we need to make sure that the children understand that this is your battle to fight, and this battle is making you stronger. That's why we get rich, spoiled kids, right? Because the parents want to give them everything and save them from the difficulty of going out into the world, earning a living. What happens to those people? Rather than being happy, they become miserable. They go into depression. They find that there's no reason for living. There's no meaning to their lives, because they wake up every day and everything is found. There's no challenges. And the day we don't have challenges is the day we stop living, right? So whether you are a person going through difficulties or you're an empath, remember this, that firstly, if you are going to let those difficulties or other people's difficulties overtake you, you are oppressing those who have rights over you. And the second thing is that if those people are going through difficulties, remember that those difficulties could be a means for them achieving greatness. And there are a lot of people in history who went through some very difficult times, extremely difficult times. But those are the times that that formed them into the people that they became. Those are the difficulties that drove them to becoming the champions that they did. How many people grew up in abject poverty and went on to become great entrepreneurs, went on to become great scientists, because that difficulty is what shaped them. Yet if those same people were brought up in a mollycoddled environment with helicopter parents who gave them everything, they wouldn't have been a fraction of who they became.